As you heard, our only guests this week are Ruth Reichel and Alice Waters. And
Monica, hardly only, like the guests.
Yes, and so they came in recently. They were doing a talk at the Humanities Festival. And for those of you who don't know who Ruth Reichel and Alice Waters are,
Where have you been?
Well, Alice Waters has been called the mother of American cuisine. She started Chez Panisse, a highly influential seasonal restaurant.
The restaurant in Berkeley, which is kind of like credited for our whole, like, for better or worse, like hipster food movement, you know?
I don't know about hipster. I think certainly seasonal and organic and really letting the ingredients be the star.
Yeah.
And the fact is, early 70s she opened it and it's still there and still ranked one of the highest restaurants in the nation.
Right, or as I like to call them, they're like the original like food OGs, I mean, they were
That's original gangster for those who not organic gardener. But maybe organic gardener, the original organic gardener. There you go.
Gangsters. OG.
So,
I like that.
And then, of course, Ruth Reichel also started her culinary career in the early 70s in Berkeley.
And you got to remember, this is a time when they were both just like in their early 20s, which is really pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. And they grew up together in that food movement in Northern and then Southern California and really laid the foundation for the food that we kind of take for granted today, like naming all the farmers and really caring about like heritage and heirloom and all of that. It really not necessarily started with them, but they certainly were the pioneers. They were the pioneer women in this.
Right. Alice told us that she was the first person to bring mesclun to the United States and plant it.
Like those little mixed boxes of lettuces we take for granted everywhere.
And so we thought, they are totally worth a whole episode. And so we kind of separated them when they came in. And Louisa started off by talking to Ruth.
Which sounds a little weird.
Well, no, because I'm kind of a fanatic about school food. So I really wanted to talk to Alice about that. And so Louisa started off by talking with Ruth about her latest literary accomplishments.
There'll be no fanfare to begin. It's back down to the simple pleasure again.
You're listening to Chewing the Fat. I'm Louisa Chew here with Ruth Reichel. And first thing I need to ask you is for you to say your last name.
Reichel.
There you go. On the record. That is correctly how it is pronounced, despite what Wikipedia says.
What does Wikipedia say?
Reichel.
Oh.
Yeah. So there you go. And your breakfasts and your snacks, lunches, dinners, meals have been chronicled on Twitter, so much so that they've inspired one of your next books. I know we're going to talk about Delicious, your newest novel, but I have to ask you about the Twitter
cookbook?
Yes.
Which I've just turned in. It is a memoir that it begins with the closing of Gourmet, and it goes for a full year. And it takes the tweet from each day, and then you get the backstory. I was so devastated when the magazine closed, so it's sort of like the real thing that was happening in my life, and then the recipe for whatever it was that I was tweeting about that day. And it's really the story of how cooking saved my life. I mean, if I had not been able to go into the kitchen in that year, I don't know what I would have done, but it was like going back into the kitchen. I reconnected with real life, and the Twitter community was so fantastic. I mean, I went from, sort of tweeting to my friends to suddenly having this whole community of people who were with me in the kitchen. And it was really a revelation. I mean, I had not thought about social media in that sense, but suddenly, I was having like daily exchanges with people on the other side of the world who I'd never met.
Always account for strangers. Yeah.
And it really kind of changed the notion of cooking for me. I mean, it's like I'd always felt alone, and not necessarily in a bad way, but, alone in the kitchen. And suddenly I felt like I was in there with a group of friends every day. And between the love for the physical act of cooking and I started wandering the city again, going out and collecting ingredients and just playing around in the kitchen. And at the end of the year, I was healed.
These streets will make you feel brand new. Lights will inspire you. Let's hear it.
Your tweets, they were kind of, parody with Ruth Bourdain, and the book was kind of inspired by Tony Bourdain because he had called it the Tao of Ruth.
Right.
And because they seem like these little, the 140 characters, these brief little glimpses into your life, and the depth that you're revealing of what this book is going to be. We're going to need big blankets to curl up into before we can read this, another one of your books. And is that going to be the new title for this memoir
Well,
as
we were going to call it The Tao of Ruth. And I realized that once you read the introduction and you realize that it's like he was parodying me and it was meant satirically, it's okay. But, most people aren't going to know that, and they're going to think, well, boy, she thinks a lot of herself. And I went to my editor and I said, we can't call it this. We're now calling it Simple Pleasures just because that's really what it is about. Learning, and I think this is what my tweets are trying to be about, is learning to appreciate the little things in life. I mean, really, that for me is what I took away from that year is, I had this big glamorous job, and I was always waiting for the wonderful. And then for those 10 years at Gourmet, spectacular things happened on a regular basis. And in that year, I learned to, appreciate the feeling of the rain on your face and the smell of onions caramelizing in butter, and realizing that there's a lot to be grateful for every day. And that, in the kitchen, I relearned that.
Simple pleasure, simple reasons again. And all the unspoken hours, side by side with you, my friends.
Wow, Louisa, that was a really beautiful interview you did with her.
Oh my gosh, it was, again, a moment where I nearly burst into tears. And
no wine or bathroom this time.
I was close.
So that Twitter-inspired book sounds like it's really going to be fascinating.
Yeah.
But she's also, and that was, nonfiction, but she's also like launching into a fiction career too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, the Twitter book, it was pretty fascinating because this was the first time that I learned of the real story behind her Twitter book. Here we thought she was living this wonderful, perfect, idyllic culinary life. And in reality, it was just so much pain. And when she spoke about it, it was just, like I said, I had a moment. But absolutely, she just wrote her first novel, and pretty amazing to hear the process of what even she, Ruth Reichel, had to go through.
This is Monica Eng reporting from Halsted Street in Chicago near Ed's Pot Sticker, Homestyle and Northern Cuisine. We are checking out with our friend Wen Wong the northern invasion of Chicago and Chicago's South Chinatown. So there are 3 restaurants here that do northern food, and we're still arguing, like 3 Chinese people will, over which one we should go to, and I'm not sure if we've decided yet. So why have we seen this explosion of northern places, this mini explosion of northern places? What do you think?
I think when I first arrived in Chicago in the 1990s, it basically was dominated by traditional Cantonese restaurants, chop suey and all the kung pao chicken, and a lot of us, we seldom came over here because people from the north, right? We really didn't find anything more authentic because, as you know, if you go to a northern restaurant, one of the things you notice, everything is flour-based. Dumplings, pancakes, noodles. But the southern food is mostly bland to us. It's very fresh, but then it's a lot of rice-based as the staple food. And then as pot stickers were the first ones that became very popular northern dishes. And then there was one in Chinatown. The chef left and started another one. And then they didn't realize that it became very, very popular, especially for breakfast. It was really comfort food. For example, the puffy donuts with soy milk. That became very, very popular.
So the youtiao, the deep fried savory fritters.
Right.
Louisa, what would be the argument for going to home style?
Because it's about discovery. So I'm interested in discovering a new place and then some of the dishes with when.
Dimmi quando l'anno il giorno
So when you think about northern food, normally different types of food comes to mind. First was you have to try dumplings. As you know, that boiled dumplings that we normally eat during Chinese New Year's. But then people always eat them for special occasions. And in the north, the dumplings normally is the Napa cabbages and pork. That's a very famous, a very popular type of dumplings. So that's first one, dumplings. The other one is pancakes, baked pancakes, and like green onion pancakes or hand-pulled pancakes. That's the things you try to decide whether it's a good restaurant or not. And a third part, of course, are noodles, and pan-fried noodles, or you have the noodle soup. They call beef stewed noodle soup. That's the thing that you want from a northern restaurant. The other one is pot stickers. For pot stickers here, and also at ads, is the pot stickers. You normally think of something round in the shape of gold nuggets, but their pot stickers is in the shape of a long cigar, and that's what is so unique about it. Another thing is a lot of people like is their chimmouse pork belly chopped into little chunks and pieces, and then stewed with cellophane noodles.
So can you say the name?
For our season 1 finale episode of Getaways, we have a very special Will She Eat It? We've covered a lot. We started out with blood cake from La Sichuan.
And we threw in some intestines at the same time. We've eaten goat testicles.
We've had brain tacos.
Brain quesadillas.
Brain quesadillas. Oh, wait a minute. That was a dumpling, according to you,
But it was
Monica.
still gross.
Right. But it was actually
Ish.
tasty. And our point for this segment is to challenge ourselves for food to see if we'll eat it and hopefully enjoy it, but also to share with listeners that we can really appreciate some of the lesser known, more possibly bizarre, weird, gross foods that are out there.
I
but they're
think what
actually
you
pretty
brought
good.
today is grosser than anything we've
I
had
know.
yet.
It's okay. So, Monica, I'm looking on our list of things, and somebody has put on here for our Will She Eat It this week, gross chige. I'd like to know who did that, please.
Well, when you
Thank
told
very
me that
much.
it was going to have hot dog spam and American cheese, that's what I decided to call it.
Right. Well, thanks for
Chige is Korean for stew, by the way.
yeah. Thanks for trying to
Come into this with an open mind.
No. Thanks for trying to influence our listeners. So for this Will She Eat It, I made myself at home a Korean budae jjigae, which literally translates to army base stew. This was a invention post-Korean War when food was hard to come by. And so it was actually a brilliant mashup using local kimchi and leftover army-based food like spam.
So when the Americans came, the rations that they left there from the army,
Exactly. Yeah. And so when people really had nothing local to eat, they had leftover rations that included spam and hot dogs and American cheese and sometimes baked beans, Vienna sausage. I made this at home today with some spam. My mouth is watering just thinking about it.
And you
actually.
probably had tons on hand in your pantry at all times.
No,
anyway.
I did not. I had to go especially buy some from Jungbu Market here in Chicago. And I got the Korean specialty, which is actually the 25% lower sodium spam because while
Nice, because when
Yeah.
you're eating spam, you want to go healthy.
Right. So when the Koreans eat their spam, they do like to go lower sodium. So I used lower sodium spam, kimchi, which I also then browned, nice caramelization, some Vienna beef Parkview hot dogs from one of your favorite stores, the Aldi's, and the really super spicy Shin Ramyun instant ramen noodles.
Oh, so not just ramen, not just Spam, not just hot dogs, but all of them in one big mashup.
And a nice slice of American cheese.
Oh, right,
yes.
right. I forgot.
Craft singles, because you have to go authentic here. You can't use the lesser quality.
You have to like keep that quality up.
Right. And so I included a little bit of rice because it's kind of flavorful and kind of spicy. And rice is a good, sort of stretcher. So I'm going to serve some up for you. I know you're really excited about this, and I'm very happy to share with you.
When I did a story about Korean bakeries years ago, it was interesting because wheat was introduced post-war by the Americans with their donations to Korea. And it's just interesting to see how those donations have influenced the local cuisine. I think having the interesting sort of Western pastries is probably better than having them put Spam and hot dogs and American cheese in their ramen.
All right, so I am going to serve this up, and this is actually cooled off a little bit, and I'm going to serve you just a little bit because I'm sensing that you're not appreciating this. Will She Eat It nearly as much? One thing I did want to specify, too, is that normally for our past Will She Eat It episodes, we've said specifically this has to be a food that is sold. Since I actually made this myself at home.
Well, the different parts are sold for sure.
Exactly. So this is cooled off, so it's kind of congealed a little bit, Monica.
Oh, I can't. Congealed on top of all that? I can't wait.
Hold on. I'm going to serve you some.
Where did you get this recipe?
Well, that's the wonderful thing about budae-jjigae. It's like meatloaf, that there can be lots of different kinds of recipes. So you can start off with a base that includes the kimchi, and which is absolutely necessary. And then some people will put in the Spam or hot dog. And then from there, you can just go wild.
I love that you didn't even break up the ramen noodles.
I
They're
did
still in
for
this
sure.
Kind of mashed up.
I broke it up.
Form.
Right? No. I broke up the ramen noodles into bite-sized pieces, and like I said, it cooled off and it's kind of congealed a little bit. But when it's nice and hot, this is perfect to have on a really cold winter's day.
Yeah, maybe I should throw it in the microwave. But you know what? I'm going to eat this cold first. What's this lump of mystery meat that I'm eating? Is that the hot dog?
Monica,
you cut it up like for a little kid.
If you can't spot the round piece, which is clearly a hot dog, then it's Spam.
It's Spam.
Wait, do you have a piece with American cheese on it?
No,
okay,
I missed that.
Let me give you a
treat.
little piece of American cheese. Hold on one second. Let me put it in your.
Oh, right.
There you go. So I'm going to take
all
a bite.
Of my hard work trying to keep clean food in my body. Here we go. Wow, that's some creamy American cheese.
Mm-hmm. Real craft American cheese.
This is so loaded with MSG. Of course, it tastes good.
Yeah. Hey, MSG has become one of the hot and trendy.
I know it's troubling. It's very troubling.
That was really spicy.
Oh, you had it. So you were saying MSG has become a hot and trendy.
MSG has become a really hot and trendy chef ingredient. In fact, Grant Achatz did a little video for Tasting Table where he talks about MSG.
So disappointing. MSG is nothing but a shortcut for lazy chefs who don't want to take the time to build the glutamates from long cooking of good meats or mushrooms and other things.
Burn. All right. So what do you think of this special getaway edition of Will She Eat It, Monica? My homemade budae-jjigae, which brings us to Korea with this special army-based stew.
I have to say, it does have some deep umami flavors. I don't want to know where they're coming from. And I can see how this would be very satisfying on a day like today. I would prefer probably just some good kimchi and rice. I used to have kimchi, rice, and shots of vodka on really cool days.
Wait, shots of vodka?
Yeah. No,
That
sorry.
sounds really good.
Yeah, so it was sort of like, the Soviet part of Korea. I was trying to simulate that.
All right. I do have to say that for the recipes I've seen online, it just talks about boiling everything together. My tip is that I start off with a hot pot and brown the Spam first, add in the chopped kimchi to sort of deglaze and let that brown up again. So again, you're building layers of flavor, and then throw in the water, the spice packets for your noodles, break up the noodles into little bite-sized pieces, cook the noodles barely, and then toss the hot dogs in at the very end, or brown that again as well. So
For the sickos out there who want this recipe, Louisa will be
Are you
posting it
kidding,
on
Monica?
our website.
this
Along
is
with
a
pictures.
seriously amazing dish, which takes me to Korea, also to a place and time that maybe appreciated a little bit more. So might want to think about that.
That's true. It comes from a period of want, and I appreciate that. Well, thank you very much. Will she eat
say
it?
that
Yes,
so
we did.
enthusiastically. Yeah.
Is my body happy about it? No.
I'm having trouble trying to sleep. counting sheep but running out. As time ticks by,